Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Good morning. Welcome to Good Morning Crypto, where we turn your early hours in the morning into your edge in financial freedom. Today, I've got a few headlines. One of them's about the Department of Government Efficiency, and the other one has to do with the Pentagon. They kind of tie into each other, and it's something I've definitely been interested in, especially when we saw what Argentina has done with their government and how they've decided to cut spending by cutting jobs and cutting unnecessary sectors, and especially with Trump's promises to cut government departments and things like the Department of Education. We definitely have some good potential to bring strength back into the dollar, and I want to dive a little bit into that later in the show. But let's dive in and get you prepped for success today, and I've got the stock heat map pulled up. So for the morning, we've got Apple in the pre-market doing down 0.15% off of its 1.3% gain yesterday. We've got Nvidia that was sitting down 1.29% and is basically taking all of those losses away in the pre-market, sitting up 1.23%. We've got Berkshire Hathaway, which is sitting up 0.41%, and the pre-market sitting down 0.17%, so it's still looking pretty neutral. We've got Amazon, which is sitting down 0.45%. In the pre-market, it is sitting neutral. It is down 0.04%. We've got Walmart, which is sitting down 0.2%. In the pre-market, it is up almost 2% right now, up 1.84. We've got Eli Lilly, which is sitting down 2.55. And in the pre-market, sitting down a little bit. It is down 0.61%. We've got ExxonMobil, which made some decent gains yesterday, up 0.84%. In the pre-market, down 0.35. Tesla is sitting up 5.62 from yesterday. It is taking away some of those gains in the pre-market, though, almost down 1%, down 0.9. We've got Microsoft sitting up 0.18. In the pre-market, sitting down a little bit, down 0.27. Got Google, which made some decent gains yesterday, up 1.62. In the pre-market, down almost 1%, down 0.74. We've got Meta sitting up 0.06, looking extremely neutral, and in the pre-market, down just 0.4%. Let's hop over to the crypto side of things. We've got Bitcoin sitting up 1.38% right now, sitting at 91,700. Got Ethereum sitting down 2.54. Got Solana sitting up 2.63. Got XRP taking away some of those gains that it had made. We are now sitting down 0.104. We've got BNB sitting down. Looking neutral though, it's just down 0.12. We've got Dogecoin continuing its little move on to the upside. It is up 3.54. Got Toncoin sitting neutral. It is up 0.36. We've got Cardano, which is looking green for the morning. It is back in that 73-cent range, and it is up 0.64%. We've got Sui sitting up just a little bit, up 0.41. We've got Avalanche, which is making a little retrace. We've got it down 1.63. WorldCoin is also continuing its retrace as well. It is down 3.66. We've got Tron sitting up 1.19. Zebu from yesterday that I talked about, it is sitting down 1.91. We got Chainlink making a little move to the downside, down 2.03%. And Shiba Inu, rounding it out, is up 0.79. On the economic calendar today, today is one of our only heavy data drops for the day. We've got building permits prelims, and this will be for new buildings that are going up. We also have later, same time, but it's a data drop afterwards, is going to be housing starts and housing month over month. There's a little bit of a discrepancy on that. You can kind of see that the building permits is forecasted to be up from 1.42 to 1.43 million, but the housing starts is forecasted to be down just a little bit. So a little bit of a laggard in some of the housing that's actually going up. We will kind of see how this data drop impacts the markets coming out at 8:30 this morning. Other than that, there's nothing really heavy for the day besides Japan coming out at 6, almost 7 Eastern time. It is going to be 6:50 Eastern time with their balance of trade, imports and exports year over year. Let's hop over to the fear and greeds. We've got the stock market sitting 50 and neutral. It is up a point from yesterday. For the crypto side of things, we're back in extreme greed. Up 7 points from yesterday and back to 90 from this past weekend. So definitely looking a little bit toppy. We'll kind of have to take a look at the chart though, because there's definitely some potential for some more upside movement. We're kind of squeezing out some shorts right now. For the liquidation heat map on the 24-hour, you can kind of see that the liquidity is mostly to the top side of us on that 24-hour chart. For the 3-day, it's still just mostly to the top side of us. If you zoom on out just a little bit to the monthly, you can kind of see our last hot spot to the bottom side is sitting down here. We've got some at 66, which is definitely not a move I'd really like to see right now, and is not too plausible. If you drop it down to that 2-week though, you can kind of see there was a bit of a hot spot at the 77,000 range. Oh, so here at the 86,000 range, and then again down here at about 75. So not heavy liquidity, but some liquidity to the downside right there at 86. Let me pull up the Bitcoin chart real quick. As you can kind of see, we're bumping up against this breakout target that I had from our broadening megaphone from the past 6 months that we had stayed in pretty nicely. And I'm definitely looking for a little bit of a move back into this. You can kind of see when we broke into it, we got heavy selling pressure and just moved right on down to this 236 here at 87,000. I was kind of looking for another little bounce off of this 236. It's looking like we are going to be just moving back into this range though. You know, the daily chart has the money flow still looking pretty nice. As you can kind of see here, it's still kind of increasing. Nothing too crazy on it on the increase though. Not looking like it's about to level out or anything. You do have the MACD, which is kind of looking sideways. Your prime oscillator has turned red. a few days ago, but that red has basically just been a sideways move for now. If you move it back down though to some lower time frames, you can kind of see your money flow has moved back to the positive on an hourly and below the hourly. The 4-hour one is the only real outlier on that money flow, which was negative there. So you can kind of see here that you've got some divergences that could potentially play out for a little bit of some downside moves. This will probably play out if you don't see as positive of a sentiment on your housing data that is coming out here at 8:30. With your MACD looking set to cross, this is definitely a potential for a slight little pullback before potentially moving on to the upside, because you could see that higher time frame charts were looking set to cross to move on to the upside. You've got your prime oscillator here showing money flow looking green again on a 15-minute chart, showing for the morning that we could see some potential moves to the upside. We will kind of see how this data plays out though. Your MACD is set to really send in either direction. Your prime oscillator is also kind of set to send in either direction. You do have these divergences on both the upside and the downside, so it's kind of looking like we could go either direction, and it's going to be a real data drop that sends the market in either way. Let me say hello to the chat this morning. I see y'all in here. We've got Jesse Gulek in here first in saying smash the like. We've got Crypto Billy in here saying good morning, good morning. Change your shoelaces. Got Mike Play in here. Good morning. Buck in here as well. Good morning, good morning. Crypto Billy saying lots of hedge fund managers selling Nvidia. I sold mine. I'll have to look into that today. My whole signal was Nancy Pelosi. If she doesn't sell her Nvidia, I don't know if a whole lot of people really should, because she makes pretty good returns on that. We've got Mike Play saying dog is running. Darren Does Things saying I'm late, Ayo fam. Crypto Billy, hola, busy catching up due to silly work meeting. Got Rsan246 in here. Good morning. Can we get a look at render whenever possible? Yes, I can do that later in the show for you. You might have to remind me though. We got Knox Bill in here with the Bitcoin symbol, and Randy a Bite in here as well saying good morning, getting coffeeed up. Let me hop over to that news article. It was quite a doozy. We've got Musk's Doge wants to delete entire government agencies. Here's where most people are employed and what they make. Donald Trump picked Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to co-lead the new Government Efficiency Commission. Their aim is to cut government spending, and one idea they floated is to axe federal agencies. Millions of Americans are employed by the U.S. government, and here's how the agencies break down and what workers make. As the former GOP president, Vivek Ramaswamy, began to outline in their priorities as leaders to the Department of Government Efficiency created by Donald Trump, one of the priorities seems to be eliminating government agencies. Most recently, Ramaswamy told Fox News, "We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright." More than 2 million Americans collect their paychecks from the federal government, so Business Insider looked into which agencies employ the most people and what they pay on average. When asked about areas the commission would prioritize for spending cuts, Caroline Leavitt, a spokesperson for the Trump-Vance transition, previously told the American people re-elect President Trump by resounding margin, given him a mandate to implement the promise he made on the campaign trail. He will deliver. The U.S. government is the largest employer in the country. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management showed 8 cabinet-level agencies, which are at the center of the executive branch and have heads that report directly to the president, had more than 100,000 civilian employees as of March. Almost half of the million people were deployed by the Department of Veteran Affairs, while the Department of Education had just over 4,000. The Treasury Department had more than 100,000 employees as of March. The overwhelming majority of those, about 94,000, were employed in the Internal Revenue Service. The department had 6-figure average salaries, with the Department of Education and the Department of Energy having the highest averages. During Ramaswamy's Sunday appearance on Fox News, he said, "We expect mass reductions in force in areas of the federal government that are bloated." While neither Trump, Musk, nor Ramaswamy had made clear which departments could be on the chopping block, Trump had targeted the Department of Education in the past, saying in 2023, "One other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education works and needs back to the states." Musk said during October's remarks that while the commission's goal was to cut spending by reducing headcount, he'd consider giving impacted workers very long severances that could amount to 2 years' pay. The point is not to be cruel or to have people not able to pay their mortgage or anything, Musk said during his October remarks, adding, "We just have too many people in the government sector and they could be more productive elsewhere." The U.S. Office of Personnel Management says on its website that severance pay is authorized for full-time and part-time employees who are involuntarily separated from their federal service and who meet other conditions of eligibility. A spokesperson for the Office of BI told the severance policy was up to date and that it cannot comment on the actions of future administrations. Whilst the two leaders of the initiative have started to detail the areas of government spending they're looking to target, DOGE is not an official government agency. Past commissions on government spending, such as the Grace Commission under former President Ronald Reagan, gave the president and Congress advice on areas to cut. DOGE can advise Trump on agencies to cut, but the president-elect cannot act on it alone. Making major changes to federal government would require congressional approval. Plus, DOGE goals would still change. It's unclear how exactly the commission would function and whether Congress would approve Musk's or Ramaswamy's spending cuts. BI previously told that the U.S. spent $6.75 trillion in the fiscal year 2024, while Social Security, health programs, and Medicare topping the spending list. They could be on the commission's chopping block, but Medicare and Social Security are forms of mandatory spending that require legislative to change. Hold on just a second, I need some water. This is definitely something that I've been interested in. As you saw, the red sweep that took the country with this past election, it makes it a little bit easier for DOGE to enact some of these policies. As it had said here in this article, it will require Congress to step in and make some of these changes that they bring up to them. They are recommendations, but when you have the full red wave that took place, it is more likely to pass if it does get voted on. You don't have a super majority in the Senate, but you do have a massive majority in the House. And it's very easy to enact some of these policies, especially when you're talking about wasteful spending and wanting to strengthen the economy. These are all signs that the dollar might see some strength in this next administration. When you have cutting costs and lowering the spending of the U.S. government, you're going to see an increase of the money supply, but it's not going to be a negative increase of money supply, because this money is money that would have been spent in sectors that are just no longer needing it. It'll allow the government to kind of decide where this money would be better suited. It will also help in curbing some of the inflation, because you do have the government that likes to keep throwing money at things to keep things stable, but it doesn't always work like that, you know. Sometimes they break things a little more than they fix them. You do have the debt, which is getting extremely out of control, and when you have a government that is going to spend less money, they can focus a little more on paying down some of this debt, which will also bring some strength back into the dollar, because you won't have this debt that's weighing over the head of the United States dollar. So these are all some signs where you could see the slow impact, because as it said, you know, there's going to be severance packages that come in to play, but it's going to be half of that administration, where if their job is cut, they'd get that 2-year severance, but it would allow for some time for them to adjust to come into the private sector. And if you have a stronger private sector, you can kind of raise things up from the bottom up, instead of trying to fix problems from the top down. Because trying to fix problems from the top down rarely works, because there's so many problems and you're not really fixing the issue. You're just throwing money at problems, and throwing money at problems is not an efficient way to do things. The tying in article that I had was a big one. The Pentagon fails 7th audit in a row, unable to fully account for $824 billion budget. So, you know, this is definitely something that the Department of Government Efficiency would be taking a look at. You have a lot of waste in the government, and sometimes they just don't know how to pass an audit, because they don't keep proper spending records. They don't want to keep proper spending records because they don't want you to know what they actually do with the money. So the Pentagon failed its 7th consecutive audit on Friday, as the agency was unable to fully account for its massive $824 billion budget, though officials were confident the Department of Defense has turned a corner in its understanding its budgetary challenges going forward. The audit resulted in a disclaimer of opinion, which means auditors were provided with insufficient information to form an accurate opinion of the accounts. Of the Department of Defense, 28 reporting entities that had standalone audits, 9 received an unmodified audit option, 1 received a qualified opinion, 15 received disclaimers, and 3 opinions remained pending, the Pentagon said. But with the goal of achieving a clean audit by 2028, Michael McCord, under the Secretary of Defense Comptroller and Chief Financial Officer, said the agency has turned a corner in its understanding of the depth and the breadth of its challenges. Momentum is on our side, and throughout the department there is a strong commitment and a belief in our ability to achieve an unmodified audit option, he said in a statement. The objective of earning an unmodified audit option is mandated by the National Defense Authorization Act. McCord told reporters at a briefing on Friday that he would not say that the agency failed, as it had about half clean opinions. So if someone had a report card that is half good and half not good, I don't know what you call the student or the report. I don't know that you call the student or the report card a failure, he said. Independent public accountants and the DOD Office of Inspector General closely examined the financial statements for the audit. McCord emphasized in his statement that the path to the clean audit is clear. And this is just something that happens in government a lot. You have money that moves to an agency, and they don't fully account for the money, and maybe they don't necessarily need all of that money. I'm not necessarily saying the Department of Defense doesn't need all of that money, but maybe they don't need all of that money, especially when you have a bunch of warmongers that end up benefiting from some of these budgets and things like that. You have interest groups in other sectors as well. You have pork budgets, and you just throw on, well, because you agreed with me, your state's gonna get this national park money or park money for just your state. Roads that are not actually federal government roads, but we're gonna throw that money at you when your state should actually be taking care of this money. And there's just a lot of bloat in government. And if you start decreasing some of these government agencies and the reach and the powers that they have with the Department of Government Efficiency, you can start seeing some of these problems that we all complain about head in the right direction, especially when you're paying out a decent amount of your paycheck every single day to the government for taxes, and you don't really know what happens with these taxes. There's no clear definition on where these taxes go. The only thing that's really clear is Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. But you do have the government, which is running in such a deficit that is borrowing against Social Security at an alarming rate. And if you can cut some of these agencies and cut some of the need for spending of these agencies, maybe you could have a stronger Social Security program that is not at risk of maybe being defunct by, like, I think it's 2038 is what some of the predictions are. So this is definitely a necessary thing if you don't want to cut Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. You're going to need to see the government really get its butt in gear. So just something I've been thinking is extremely interesting. You have seen Argentina do some of these things, and they've really got their deficit down in a short amount of time. There is no extremely clear data on it so far of how far the deficit has come down, but they've brought down their deficit from an 8% of their GDP to less than 3%. And this is something that all the you have your average American complaining about the government deficit and how in debt the U.S. government is, and cutting a bunch of paper pushing jobs that are kind of redundant is one way to kind of get that. And you could see the U.S. economy strengthen over the long term if these people move back to the private sector and cause more business to actually be produced in America instead of living off of the tax dollars, which instead of needing the tax dollars to have their salary, they are having a salary that is made by local business, and instead of getting paid out, they are paying in at a smaller rate as well, because we would need less money, so you could potentially lower some taxes. I don't know if that would happen right away, But it's definitely something that could be done later down the road. If we can cut some of the need for the government to need so much money, then you could cut some of the taking of the money on the back end. Let me say hello, hop back into chat for a second. We have Clay the Great in here saying hooty hoo. Morning, everyone. We have Clay the Great saying checks and balances, man. Yes, most definitely. We'll kind of see how this plays out in the new administration. We have Buck saying contracts. All set saying DDT, have a wonderful day, brother. Let me hop back over to some of the charts. I had taken a look at gold yesterday, and I had talked about coming back up to this 236 at that 2,636 mark. I was not expecting the move to be made all in one day, but it made it all in one day. I was looking at some strength being made down here at the bottom of this Fibonacci extension. We have closed this gap. Let me redo that. Turn that black to show that it is now closed, and might potentially be a bouncing point on the top if we do end up losing the bottom of this fib extension. It would show some strength points, because as you could see here, there was some selling pressure when we broke out of it, but when we came back down to it, there was heavy buying pressure. You could see the money flow really came in there to the positive side of things. So that that bottom side target of $2,603 could be a bouncing point if we end up pulling back. You do see continued strength here on your prime oscillator, though, being still green after a reversal signal was shown. You don't have some overbought signals either, so could continue that move to the upside today. Your MACD just crossed positive as well, so maybe seeing a slight pullback off of some bad data is possible, but I would look at some continued upside for that. Before maybe seeing a little bit of a pullback, I would look at that 2,656 to be that next little point. You can kind of see here as well, we made a fair value gap on the way down in this range. I can kind of draw that out, but I'm just going to leave it because I want to look at some other things this morning. So you got silver as well, making that same little move to the 236 that I had drawn. It kind of hit some local resistance. It was a resistance point back here when we ended up moving on to the downside. That was that $31.58 mark. You can kind of see here we got some selling pressure here, and unlike gold, it does not look like it's retaining some of that strength. You do have your prime oscillator, which ticked to the red after a reversal signal, and your MACD has a little bit of curvature on it, so could definitely see a play to the downside on silver. You've got a few points where we could bounce off of. Right here down to the bottom side at $31.25 is one point that we could bounce off of. You had seen some heavy buying pressure here on this candle, which kind of a doji candle, not really too doji though. The volume on that is a little bigger than I'd like to see. You do see $30.91 being another point we could kind of bounce off of. It was a short-term resistance here and could easily be turned into some support on a move to the downside before a continuation back up above this 236. That next top side target I have is $32, and a decent low move to the upside off of this bottom of the Fibonacci extension that I had talked about from last week, being maybe a little decent buying point on some silver. Let me hop over to some of the indices that I've been talking about for the past few days. You can kind of see here we got that bounce off of the midline. Let me drop it down to the hourly so you can kind of get a better view. I had said that we would probably get a little pullback out of the range and probably waffle around in between these two CME gaps. It looks like we did exactly that for Monday, and I would look for a slight continuation of that. I'd be looking for a move back up. There is a CME gap that starts here at 18,926. So if you continue to see some strength moving back in, you kind of have the money flow, which is increasing, but it's still a little red. So I would look at the money flow to switch before seeing some real upside target of that. But the 18,929 could be a point that we end up pulling up to before a little bit of some downside if this money flow is going to stay red. You do have your MACD, which just crossed your indicator line, but it is on the negative side of things. So still not looking massively positive on that, but definitely could end up pulling up to the CME gap before coming on back down. All I would kind of look for is you got your higher high here and some higher lows, and continuing on up to this old CME gap that I have drawn out from way back here. That would be the next kind of range that I would look at closing. So the resistance here at 18,931 would be that first point I would look at. And then above that, you got that midline, which play out pretty nicely on your traditional side of things, being $19,034. For the S&P, you got some nice bouncing off of the top side of that CME gap, and it's looking like you might make a little bit of a continuation back into this CME gap up here. That midline being 5,929, where I would kind of look at some resistance. It is a CME gap that was made on the way down, and looking like we could kind of move back into it a little bit stronger than the Nasdaq. We do have the same on your MACD, where your MACD line just crossed your indicator line, but it is also in the negative. So just looking for that money flow to kind of tick back up. And this is definitely something you could see with the data drop that is going to be coming at 8:30 Eastern time. Let me pull up the Russell. It was doing some of the same that the rest of the indices have, but it's looking like it's looking to make some strength on top of the CME gap instead of pulling all the way back down to the midline. You do have that money flow, which is kind of red for the morning. So kind of looking like the risk on is a little bit more, has a little bit more of that downside potential. Your MACD, which crossed your indicator line on the bottom side of things, is looking a little like it's curving. So could see some strength being made down here on the top side of the CME gap. And if we're unable to retain that, I'd be looking at some downside targets on that at 2,281. That would be that midline point that traditional markets really like to play off of on CME gaps if they're not fully going to close it and they want to leave it open for a later testing. Let me see if anyone wants some assets looked at for the day. If you do have that, you can leave that in chat for me, and I will get to that when I have the chance. I was looking at Injective this morning before the show. It is one of my favorite altcoins. Let me zoom it on up to higher time frame. We've got the 4-hour chart here, which is looking to regain a little bit of strength. You have your money flow, which is kind of looking like it's leveling out some, and could easily see some green start ticking back into that. You do have this golden pocket here, which was at $24.81 mark, which is looking like it would be a point of local support. So if we do end up seeing some bad data, I could look at a bounce back here at the $24.81 mark, but it's looking like we're seeing some strength coming back. You got your MACD, which is looking like it could end up making a little cross on the positive side of things, but I would really want to see that money flow start ticking back in on some of these alts. You've got your prime oscillator, which is extremely red here and ticking to the downside. So something to keep in mind that the longer term chart there is looking a little bit bearish. But as you can kind of see here on your shorter time frame, with low liquidity, you're getting a little bit of move off of that golden pocket. I would look at breaking this last high on the move down, which was 25.72, and turning that into a support for a move on up. You can kind of see your prime oscillator is extremely green here, and your MACD is set to kind of cross that zero line on a short-term time frame. So that 25.70 would be a nice little point to look at, maybe making a little move off of it. That you've got some topside local targets at about $27, and could see that play out pretty easily if we get that push up to the upside into that target that I've had drawn for quite a while, which looks like that's what Bitcoin's doing right now, pushing back into that target box that I had drawn. So just something to keep in mind. If we do continue that upside target, $27 is looking pretty nice on Injective. And just need to turn some of these local areas at 25.70 and 26.20 into support on the way up. I did have a request for render earlier, so let me take a look at that real quick. Looking like render's already getting that move to the upside. Let me kind of pull up a higher time frame. Got the daily here. Money flows looking extremely green on that daily chart. Your prime oscillator turned red for a second, but it is looking to kind of turn back to the upside on things. So could definitely see continued move on this pump. I would need to draw a new Fibonacci there, looking like we turned that $4.23 into the local support that I had been looking at for the breakout to the upside. So let's kind of draw a new fib here, high to low, and then zoom on in. It looks like even there, that top side target would be that 1618, and that's looking at $8.47 to be a little point where we could start seeing some resistance on that. As we've completely blasted through most of this, we made some fair value gaps here. There's some here down at the bottom side below that 236, sitting at $5, and again here at $5.50. So this midline of this fair value gap, which you can see some heavy buying pressure off of on these wicks from daily candles, could be a nice little point of bouncing, but it's looking like render's got some real strength in it right now. The next topside targets above that would be that 10, almost $10 mark. So we've got that $9.74, which had some heavy selling pressure from back here, and would be that point in the middle of the 1618 and the 2618 where I would really want to see some strength. But if we blast on up to the upside of that and come up to this $9.71, could be a little point of a rejection if we're going to blast through this 1618. I do see Clean Spark being requested, as well as Pepe and Popcat and Doge. So let me take a little look at Clean Spark. Let me go over to the traditional side of things and scroll on down. I haven't really taken a look at Clean Spark. I know that's more of a Piper asset there, and he takes a look at it pretty frequently. It's looking like Clean Spark's seeing a little bit of weakness. Could definitely change extremely quickly though if Bitcoin's going to retain some of this strength that it has and moving on up to that breakout target I had to the upside. Let me kind of zoom on out to a higher time frame chart. Let's see a weekly chart real quick. I haven't looked at Clean Spark in quite a while. So you had this low here, moving on up to the high, and it looks like we're sitting right there below the 50% on that retracement. Could easily see us come down to the golden pocket, which has been a point of resistance and where we've made a fair value gap on the way up and created a CME gap right above. You can kind of see that the weekly chart is looking a little red on that money flow. If you zoom it on into the daily, you've got your MACD, which is kind of set to cross on the top side of things. So maybe retain some strength there and see that golden pocket play out. Your money flow is looking a little bit like it's could go from green to red here. Your prime oscillator showed some overbought signals and a reversal signal as well, but it looks like that's gonna possibly retain that strength on that golden pocket at 1165. I'm sure Piper will dive on into it a little bit later in the day when he does that morning market report show at 9:30 Eastern time. You can kind of see here as well on the hourly that money flow still decently red. We weren't able to really push on up too high when things ticked green because that money flow is so red. You've got your MACD, which is set to kind of send things either way on the negative side of things, but I'd really look, because of that money flow, at this golden pocket here. You do have your pre-market, which is kind of to the upside of things right at the moment, but definitely waiting to see on what kind of strength that Bitcoin can have. This is a mining company, so I'm sure if you tune into the morning market report, Piper can give you a little better TA on that, because he's heavily invested in Clean Spark and looks at that chart way more often than I do. I would kind of look at, for an upside, that $14.10 mark being a point where we make some strength. These were pretty equal lows here, and you do have the CME gap, which is sitting right there. Let me draw the CME gap out on this one though, so we can see where that midline is to see where a point of bouncing might be. Sitting right above that 50% line, and that's going to be at $14.24. So that could be a point of resistance again, because you can kind of see here it played out as resistance here, and you saw some resistance right above it there. Looking like it might be a short-term downtrend for it, but you still get some little pumps in downtrends. I do see Lunar Beaches in here saying good morning, BC and alumni. Oh, Alexandra G in here as well. Good morning, good morning. Let me scroll up to see what some of the other requests were. We had DOGE requested. Let's move back over to this and scroll down. We've got Doge there. I don't look at meme tokens too much. I do not invest in meme tokens at all. So let's zoom it on out to the weekly and kind of see how things have been playing out for Doge. And yep, so I had this this drawn out from the past 6 months as well. That was kind of the same broadening megaphone that Bitcoin had, but you can kind of see Doge here looking a little toppy on a weekly, but with all the good news that has been coming out associated with the name Doge, could definitely see more and more upside. Let's kind of pull a fib from this high to this low before the breakout. Let me get that right. As you can kind of see here, you've got us sitting right below that 216 from that candle wick where there was some decent selling pressure. But if we zoom it on down to a daily, your money flow was starting to go green on the weekly and is extremely strong on that green for the daily as well. Your prime oscillator is looking like it's going to continue on to the upside. Your MACD is looking like it could make a continuation on the upside as well. So definitely looking for some more upside targets on Doge. That 46 cents looks like it could be a resistance point for Doge. Looking like we made a little breakout from here. Let's pull a more of a local fib on a shorter time frame to see what some of these bouncing points could be on a shorter time frame. Let me hide that one there and zoom on in to a 15-minute chart. Let me get that all nicer. There we go. As you can kind of see here, you've got your 50% line being a little point where you could blast through here as your money flow just ticked back to the green on a 15-minute chart, and your MACD just crossed your indicator line on the top side of things. So some local points where you could kind of see some resistance is going to be that golden pocket. If we can make some strength on that 50% line at 39 cents, that 40-cent mark is going to be a nice little point of local resistance before we can kind of make a move up to this platinum pocket where we had seen heavy selling pressure here. It was heavy resistance here before it just sent things on to the downside. So looking for 40 cents again on Doge, maybe 41 if it can really retain that strength with some positive money flow on some shorter time frame charts and maybe into the hourly as well. Just retain that strength on the hourly money flow because it's coming down just a little bit on that hourly chart. So that's why I'd look at maybe that 40 cent to maybe 41 cent being a play that I could be made. The chat's going a little bit. Let's see what we got. Lunar Beaches said, "Did you get any sleep, Alexandra G?" I'm guessing she was in there for the Markets After Dark show with LBC, the new show on Piper Academy. He said that was 11 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's going to be Sunday through Thursday. So if you haven't been checking out that Markets After Dark show, that's definitely something you should be doing if you're awake. If you're not awake, you can always just give it a watch afterwards. So Lunar Beaches in the chat saying we are headed to 100,000. That's definitely something I had looked at on Bitcoin for the top side target of my breakout. I was looking at that 102 range to be that next little point where we could kind of just move sideways for a little while, consolidate. We have All Set saying good morning to Jesse Gulek. Alexandra G said she did get some sleep. Probably not very much sleep though. If you're in this chat in the morning, got Alexandra G saying good morning to Jesse. Jesse Gulak said I didn't get much. Went to bed 4 in the morning. That's way too late for me. I don't know how some of you guys do it with the no sleep. I have to be in bed by like 8:30. Otherwise, I'm grumpy the next day. So, thank you to everyone that tuned in today. I've definitely got some things I need to look into. We had Billy saying that some Nvidia sell-off was happening on some hedge funds. So, I'll need to look into that today and see what I can find on that, and see if maybe Nancy Pelosi sold off some Nvidia, and maybe we can talk about that tomorrow. Other than that, everyone, make sure to tune in to that morning market report at 9:30 Eastern Time this morning with Piper and OC Guy bringing y'all the data from the data drops that'll be coming out here and the next hour or so. So if you haven't been watching that Crypto Nightcap show with Tradefly and FD White, it is a great show. It comes out a little bit before Lunar Beach's Markets After Dark at 8:30 Eastern PM. So make sure to tune into that one as well. We are trying to bring y'all all the alpha all day long. Make sure to tune in to that Markets After Dark with Lunar Beaches at 11 p.m. Eastern Time as well. If you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, it is greatly appreciated. It's a free way to support the channel. You can also check out the links in the description, join our WAP upperclassmen on the Discord, or we've got the free section as well where we like to have fun there. So definitely check that out as well. So everyone, trade safe today. We've got that data drop coming out at 8:30 Eastern this morning. So housing data to move those markets. Other than that, everyone, wake up, because today's going to be a good day.